Good morning, Dzień dobry. My name is Alexander Saya. I welcome you to the press conference today. I'm here with Co-President Michal Kurtyka and the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Climate Change Secretariat, Patricia Espinosa. Mr. Kurtyka, the Co-President, will start with a few remarks, followed by Madam Executive Secretary. Mr. President, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Alex. Madam Executive Secretary, it's our pleasure, common pleasure, to have all of you with us at the halfway point of COP24. We are working hard and we are progressing, but we are still a lot to do. And so I'm happy to share with you where we are in the middle of this COP24. So first of all, we engaged with the Leaders Summit on the 3rd of December, Monday, and I think it was a great message from the Leaders Summit, from political level, guidance, but also provided momentum for the initiation of the work. I was very happy to have this Leaders Summit chaired by Polish President Andrzej Duda, together with Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and they both had a great message they delivered a great message of encouragement for us to work for a better world. And it was also a very tight schedule, so I'm particularly thankful to UN Secretary General, who came directly from Buenos Aires after a very demanding discussions and trips, but also what was very important at the beginning of the conference was the G20 statement which came. So we engaged the conference in a good mood, with political momentum, with political engagement. And also what was extremely appreciated and I think very much symbolic at the beginning of this COP, the announcement from Kristalina Georgieva, World Bank CEO, of mobilization of $200 billion for climate finance in the coming 5 years. So that's 40 billion annually. That's really very much appreciated, very important input to this COP, where we are also discussing a lot of financial issues, and we are also thinking ahead of how the needs could be tackled. And especially what was very important for me, that she mentioned that important part of this sum will be devoted for adaptation and resilience. As I said, we engaged very successfully during the first day, and then also the opening of the high-level segment on climate action. I was very happy with strong involvement of the civil society, of NGOs, of companies, but also of cities and regions in the beginning of this phase. We had the message of urgency, we had the message, of course, of necessity to act, but we had also heard messages of opportunity, and I was also very happy to see Bertrand Piccard to address directly to negotiators with this message that there are opportunities ahead of us which we need also to be able to grasp. Then also during the first week, an important event around IPCC report and the sense of urgency which is shared by the report with all of us, I think translated also into good progression during this first week. So right now negotiators are working very hard. It's really 24-hour a day work, and we are very thankful together with the Executive Secretary for the work being accomplished, for the great engagement from their side. Of course, as we are right now approaching the midpoint of this COP24, we are also approaching the transition between technical to political level. So this is where Polish presidency will become particularly active. So this afternoon we will announce to parties how we see planning of the second week, how we see this interaction between political level and technical issues. As you know, it is a very broad, complex regime around nationally determined contributions, transparency and finance issues which needs to be solved on these levels. Nevertheless, I'm very happy to see the progress on the technical side, and still we got on a couple of issues to be solved during the second week, which will be very much important, which will be determining the overall shape of the package. I will not go into details of negotiations for the, in order to make sure that this dynamic is ongoing and that it can continue as it is right now. I want also to share with you the fact that we are right now expecting ministers to come from all over the world, so we are going to engage them, and I'm very happy also to see a very positive answers, very positive feedback from ministers who are willing, wishing to engage, to take leadership on solving the outstanding issues. So I'm very encouraged with this good political atmosphere and engagement from ministers. Also, what was important for Polish presidency, we had the adoption of two declarations during the summit leaders meeting. It was Just Transition and Solidarity Silesia declaration, which was adopted by heads of state present during the meeting, but also a number of them joined who couldn't attend the meeting, so that was a very positive sign, and I think that this message of not leaving anybody behind in the transition, about making it together with people and not against them, is a message of, is an important message coming from Katowice to the world, and I think it provides also a useful answer to many challenges that we are facing all around the world with the transition in this regard. Also a very important fact that the second day of COP, Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki, together with the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, launched Driving Change Together declaration on electromobility, Katowice declaration on e-mobility. It's a very important message also of hope and of opportunity. Technologies are there. We need to be able to use them properly. We need to be able to build on them. And this declaration has been supported by a record number of countries, and I'm very grateful because it represents both developed countries and developing countries, both established market as well as new markets for mobility, very quickly growing with very high challenges. So this interaction between developed and developing world around capacity building, around new technologies is a very good sign for me that we are tackling the challenge of climate change all together in a meaningful way, and in a way which can bring us closer to tangible result quickly. So that was a very good start, I think, in this regard. Nevertheless, as I said, negotiators are working very hard. Right now we are having last iterations of text. It is very technical, very complex, very difficult, sometimes questions which are being solved. So we are still waiting for last results of the discussions, and in the afternoon, Polish presidency will present to parties the way ahead for the second week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam Executive Secretary, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Of course, I fully endorse the points that have been presented by President Kurtyka. Maybe underline just a few words to underline that in my view we have started this conference with a framework that has a lot of positive and very encouraging signals, and of course the very strong sense of urgency about the need to act as soon as possible coming from the IPCC report. And beyond the report, the reality that we are seeing in all different regions of the world, where we literally daily have news about some disaster that is occurring, lives that are being lost, livelihoods that are being lost, destruction, and a lot of suffering. On the positive side, what we need to register, in my view, is of course the signals and the calls that were made at the leaders' meetings. On the other hand, of course, also the announcement by the World Bank, the CEO of the World Bank, but also in something that is very much linked to our process, the launching of the replenishment process for the Green Climate Fund that has started, and the fact that Germany has already announced its pledge and has announced a double contribution from what they did last time. And I think having that here at the beginning of the conference was very positive to creating a good atmosphere in terms of confidence about continued engagement and commitment by donor countries regarding climate finance. That doesn't mean, of course, that the negotiations on finance are easy, but I think it does mean that we have some signs that commitments that have been undertaken by important partners in the donor community are relevant. Yesterday I also attended a meeting by 9 multilateral development banks in which they have announced that they are developing, they will be using a tool in order to align their portfolios to the Paris Agreement, and I think that's also a very positive signal, because what we need is not only to have resources allocated to projects on climate action, but also that all those other projects do not contradict the commitments made under the Paris Agreement. So in my view, that is also very, very positive. As positive, I would also just maybe recall the open message that was issued by former COP presidents inviting delegations to be bold and ambitious and to come up with a very successful outcome. So we will see this evening the results of the different negotiating bodies. We are hopeful that we will get some important progress in the negotiations of the text, and also that by next week we will be able to benefit from the presence of ministers here in order to address the outstanding issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Executive Secretary. The floor is open for your questions. If you please identify yourself and wait for the microphone to come, because we are also have a live webcast so that people can understand the questions. The lady here in the third row.
Thank you. Megan Rowling from Thomson Reuters. I have a question about reports that about 12 activists have either been refused entry or deported from Poland. We got that news last night. We've also heard this morning that 2 more who have been here for a week have had their papers checked by police, and then their colleagues do not know where they are. Please could you confirm these cases, and can you tell us what else you know about them and whether this is likely to happen to any other people? That is a question for Mr. Kurtyka. And a follow-up question to Patricia Espinosa. Do you think this situation is in accordance with the spirit of public participation in the Paris Agreement and the broader climate action it is supposed to bring about? Thank you.
Thank you very much for this question. There is a commitment to allow everybody who wishes to engage constructively in this discussion, of course, to be part of it. Poland is respecting very much the principles, and it is important to keep everybody in. So I'm engaging with corresponding authorities to address this issue, and of course it is important that all the rules are being respected in a constructive way.
Thank you. Well, on our side, of course, we have also immediately engaged with the Polish presidency in order to clarify and to have the relevant information about these cases. And yes, it's part of the commitments undertaken under the host country agreement that we will work together to ensure that there are the best working conditions for an open and constructive atmosphere. And we have been working on that, so I'm really hopeful and grateful for all the efforts by the Polish authorities in order to address the situations and make sure that we can continue into the next week in the most inclusive atmosphere.
Bullshit.
Next question, please. Here's CCTV and next row.
Thank you, Xu Ming from China Central Television. I got 2 questions. My first question to Madam Secretary General Espinosa. While the total amount of CO2 emission is rising in China, the carbon emitted per unit of capita is declining dramatically, which means that we have a more and more effective in economic development. So do you think it is fair for China to take in the accusation for being the largest CO2 emitter while ignoring the fact that we are a developing country and we need to grow? We still have 70 million people in poverty in China. And my second question to Mr. President Kurtyka, how do you feel about the fact that